Hey guys, welcome to Creativism, the podcast with your host Josh the Creative. And today we're going to talk about why you should give yourself deadlines and limits. And before we jump into that, this is probably the fourth episode since I've talked recently about kind of jumping back into this venture. If you've been listening so far, thanks for listening. If this is your first episode ever, welcome. I hope you are staying for the whole ride. So we're going to start off talking about procrastination, something we're all familiar with because we all do it. I'm guilty of it. So procrastination occurs typically for two reasons in my observation. We take all the time that we have for a task or project before deciding to actually complete it. So this means that we think we have time to do it tomorrow, and then we think that again the next day, and so on. I know I struggled with this in school, where I would have like a month to write an essay, and I would think, okay, I have a whole month, so I don't have to start today. I can wait till next week. And I thought that for a few more times, a few weeks in, till like the last week, I have to crunch and hurry up and poop out a whole 5-page essay or whatever, which I'm not good at writing essays, so that's not something easy for me to do, and I don't really operate fully well under pressure. Some people do, but that's not me. But for some reason, we think because we have this time, we don't have to put time to work on it. And I don't know why that exists, because that's a wasteful mindset to have. Now I'm in that mindset, and this is how you can kind of overcome that. Think, well, I have a month to work on this project, so let me go ahead and start laying out some incremental goals to get there. You have an essay to work on. This is something maybe a little more commonly familiar to you, so we'll stick with this as the sort of topic or subject around this topic. So you have this essay to write in a month. You may not be good at it, so your goal to overcome procrastination is to start laying out some incremental steps to get there, which may include doing some research, doing some rough draft writing, laying out some notes and ideas, finding your resources, and kind of fleshing it out that way and kind of going from there. Now, those things don't have to be these massively hard tasks to do. Your research you can probably spend the first week researching, but then you can't spend 3 weeks researching because you still have to do these other steps. So break that down into each week, achieve one section of that process. Spend your first week researching, and then by the end of it, you're done. That's your limit. That's your deadline that you've given yourself, because if I'm going to write this essay, like actually write it and finish it, complete it, and get a good grade, I have to actually write it. I can't spend forever researching. So that's kind of how we keep ourselves from spending too long on one part of the project, so we can move on to the next thing. Then the other reason we procrastinate, something that I've noticed more recently, is this task, this project, this goal just simply looks too hard. It's something we're not familiar with, or we think it's going to take way too much time, or it just doesn't feel easy, comfortable, or feasible for us. So we kind of just give up. We think, all right, I'll just not worry about it. But at the end of the day, towards crunch time, you find yourself still having to actually do it. Whether you were ready for it or not, that thing still had to get done. And I think the problem with that mindset is we psych ourselves up to think that it's too hard, even though we can prove to ourselves that we can get it done. We just didn't feel like figuring out how to get it done, and so we had to rush. So these two methods, in my observation, are ways, or they are ways that hinder us from completing goals, because we think we have all the time in the world, so we waste it all, or we don't know where to start, so we don't. But you have to push past that first barrier. You have to push past that barrier. I don't know how to do this. Let me figure out how to get started so that I can keep going and finish it. Don't allow yourself to think, I have all this time, so let me not use it. Take that time you have, start small, start incrementally, take it week by week, day by day, month by month, and do those little things to help get you to that goal. But you also have to give yourself deadlines and limits. This was something that came in handy when I was working on my senior thesis. I mentioned this on the setting goals episode before, but one of the things that they had us do was we had a timesheet of all the tasks that we had to do, and we actually had to write deadlines for when this will be done, when that will be done, and so on, because we had like a midterm piece where we had to have most of it done for a critique, and then we had, to actually finish it off before the end of the semester. Without having those itty bitty deadlines, we would have all procrastinated, and we would have screwed ourselves over. By midterm, none of us would have had anything fully ready, or at least as ready as they needed us to have it. So having those incremental things help to pace ourselves so that when we got to the midterm, we had enough to critique and actually judge, okay, you're off to a good start, or maybe you need a course correction. And then we continue to pace ourselves some more until the final product is there. Man, it's weird talking about college. I've been out of college for coming on 3 years now. I graduated December 2017. That was when I had finished the senior thesis I talked about. That's when I got my degree in graphic design and my photography minor. And it's just interesting talking about those things now and seeing kind of how that still comes into play now, even though I'm not working a graphic design job. Anyway, that was a tangent. Sorry. So I actually wrote this. I wrote the notes for this podcast episode months ago, and just kind of revisited recently. And what's funny is since then I've actually watched an episode from Matt Diavella's YouTube channel. If you've listened to my podcast before, I've referenced his content. He has some high quality, helpful, productive, efficient content to consume that kind of, it touches on things that I talk about here, and some of the things that he talks about I reference and touch on just because it's within the same ball game of productivity. But in an interview that he had, he discovered there are 2 aspects to procrastination. There's the it's too hard, it's overwhelming, so we don't do it, which I've also discovered. But then another thing that he mentioned that got me thinking, the task is too boring, it's mundane, and it's not really worth my time. And that was a kicker for me. The fact that a project can be so boring that you just don't feel like doing it. I was talking with my wife. She's about to intern as a teacher, and she's been doing observation hours going to the classrooms and stuff. And what she learned was there are kids who are like so smart that they get bored of school. So they act out, they mess around, they procrastinate, they don't do the work because it doesn't challenge them. And that's a dangerous thing in the wrong circumstance. But for us, as far as achieving our goals and avoiding procrastination, there's an opportunity to understand, okay, well, if this is mundane and boring, how do I make it challenging? And I don't really have the answer yet. I would actually recommend, I'm gonna have a link to it on the notes about this episode, but check out that video from Matt Diavella. It's called How to Finally Overcome Procrastination, and it dives a little deeper into ways to make something more challenging for you. I actually ran into this scenario at work yesterday, where the first like 2 hours I was on the phone taking all these calls. They were pretty straightforward. They only lasted a few minutes at a time. There wasn't much else. There wasn't much about it. There wasn't really nothing. There wasn't anything new about them. So I felt like bored. At first, I thought I was tired, but I was talking to God. I was like, Lord, I'm bored right now. I'm so bored that I'm tired because these calls are not challenging. They were too easy, I thought they were fine, but I realized it made me not want to put in the effort at a certain point. So I prayed. I inadvertently prayed about having a bigger challenge. And if you are familiar with prayer and praying to the Lord, you got to be careful what you wish for, because I got a very, 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 very challenging call that lasted 30 minutes. All the other calls, the boring calls, the mundane, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. But this was a hunker, layers and layers and layers of different challenges and stuff. But honestly, afterwards, like, I was energized. I was like, there's like a certain level of stress that caused me to put in more effort. And I was more energized after that call than I was after the 20 boring calls beforehand. So that's just another example of analyzing and realizing that we sometimes procrastinate. We sometimes don't really feel like doing things because it's just too boring. So we have to find new ways to challenge ourselves, to challenge our thinking, to make something more interesting and thought-provoking. So to wrap this up, guys, give yourself a deadline, give yourself limits, and these things are meant to help to crunch down and really go through, work on the projects you have set for yourself to achieve the goals that you have for yourself. If you are a creative, I know you have a goal because you have something you want to do. You have some place you want to be, some project you want to work on, somebody you want to collaborate with. Don't procrastinate. Don't think that you have all the time in the world, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So take the time that you have, do what you can, even if it's a small step in that direction. Do what you got to do to get yourself there. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was insightful. And I hope that you're hungry for more. I'll catch y'all next week. You can follow me on social media, Instagram and Facebook. Joshua Allen Lewis on Facebook, and on Instagram I'm at _Josh the Creative. I think it's underscore. The last few weeks I've been saying there's an underscore or not. I don't know. Try it with or without. I'll catch y'all next week, guys. Deuces.